Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Mr. Rajagopal.
Great, thank you.
Good morning, Sekai. I can confirm that all the panelists are in. I am waiting on a green light from the PS of Lesotho for us to start. Thank you. Ms. Sekai, we are ready to start. Over to you. Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. May you just confirm that you can hear me?
Loud and clear. Good morning.
Oh, thank you very much. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the ECA Sub-Regional Office for Southern Africa side event on leveraging inclusive industrialization, value addition, and trade to address youth unemployment in Southern Africa. We would like to welcome the officials that are here from the ECA, particularly the director for Sub-Regional Office, Ms. Eunice Kamwendo, who is hosting us. And thank you very much for hosting this event. And briefly, this forum is and the key constraints for the solutions that we can propose, and it is going to draw quite a lot from our country experiences to look at the structural issues, policy issues, and meant to really speak to, and that is being by participation as it is speaking to policy, speaking to the sector, it's speaking to the whole ecosystem that is responsible for realizing the youth we see on the continent. I would like to
I'm sorry, you are breaking. I can't hear you.
The same here. You're breaking a lot.
Go ahead.
Sekai, maybe excuse to interject. Could you please perhaps switch off your camera because your bandwidth is low and you're breaking a lot? Thank you.
So can you hear me? Aruna, just confirm if you can hear me,
Yes.
okay?
Yes, Director, I can hear you.
And I'm not breaking?
No, you're not breaking. Yeah,
Oh.
it's fine. I think it's from our end.
Okay, perfect. So I could hardly hear what she said, but I'm assuming that she was inviting me to speak, correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay. All right. No, thank you so much. And perhaps before I go into my remarks, just allow me to recognize the Excellency Honorable Minister of Employment and Labor from the Kingdom of Eswatini, Honorable Tseliso Mahosi. I cannot see you yet, Honorable, but I'm confident that you are online, as mentioned by colleagues. Also allow me to recognize Mr. Sekai Kovarika, who's the Chief Executive Officer of the Confederation of Zimbabwean Industries, as well as Mr. Mishe Gondo, the coordinator of the SADC Youth Forum, esteemed panelists from regional and international organizations, private sector, and the academia that are with us this morning or afternoon, wherever you are. Fellow youth entrepreneurs that are with us, and youth leaders and advocates, delegates that are in Doha, but also those of us that are in Southern Africa, members of the press, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning to you all from Lusaka, Zambia. On behalf of the Economic Commission for Africa, and indeed on my own behalf, it is with great pleasure that I welcome you all to this solution session, which is a collaborative effort between my office, the ECA's Southern African office, the SADC Youth Forum, as well as ECA's Gender Poverty and Social Policy Division, which is based in Addis. Indeed, it is such a great honor, especially to welcome Honorable Tseliso Mahosi, Minister of Employment and Labor of the Kingdom of Eswatini, to this event. I couldn't think of a better representative from our sub-region to speak to the issue that is, under discussion this morning. And indeed, not just under discussion, but it is a pressing issue of our time within the region and the continent as a whole. And as you may all recall that Lesotho recently, I think it must have been in July or June, announced the state of disaster for the kingdom of Lesotho, declaring it due to the really high levels of unemployment, but also job losses because of some of those global trade uncertainties. So it really, thank you very much, Honorable Minister, for taking your time to join us in this important conversation, but also progressing us with your presence. And I know amidst your busy schedule that you did find time to join us. We certainly look forward to your insights into this conversation, more practical insights, but also your support and recommendations and advice in terms of how we can navigate this issue. As you all know, this session is focusing on leveraging inclusive industrialization, value addition, and trade in Southern Africa to address youth unemployment. A timely conversation that we're having right now, but also one that sits at the core of our mandate as a regional office, which is advancing inclusive industrialization through economic transformation, through trade, but also regional integration in order to create jobs and reduce the really high levels of poverty and inequalities that we have in the sub-region. This event comes at a critical time for Southern Africa, where youth unemployment is way above the global average, with countries such as South Africa sitting at 59% of youth unemployment, Namibia around 43%, and Lesotho 35%. And I mean, anything, and a lot more countries are sitting between 25 and 50% within the sub-region, which is really, really high. And one of the highest in the world, actually, not just the continent. These figures, therefore, are a challenge in themselves, as what some of the challenges that come with it, but they also mask the deep gender disparities, with young women being disproportionately affected. Today's conversation, therefore, builds on a renewed global commitment to social development and the Doha Global Summit's focus on inclusion and resilience, while establishing a direct link to Agenda 2063, as well as Agenda 2030, and specifically SDG goal number 8 on decent work and economic growth. The challenge ahead of us is therefore clear, in the sense of, I think some of the questions that we do need to be asking ourselves is how can we transform the region's youthful drive, energy, and talent into a demographic dividend to power industrialization, value addition, regional trade, and of course, the creation of the jobs that we need within the sub-region. Allow me to frame, Honorable Minister, ladies and gentlemen and colleagues, to frame the challenge a bit more, just to, again, also guide the conversation. Youth unemployment, as we mentioned, in Southern Africa stands at an average of 34%. Again, as mentioned before, this is among the highest globally. And this is not just an economic challenge. It is structural and systemic. It results, and I think a lot of us know this, it's resulting from limited economic diversification within the sub-region, a weak industrial base, and a mismatch between skills acquired during training, but also the needs of emerging sectors such as digital technologies, renewable energy, and green industries and green economies. There also seems to be a lack of interest among the youth in some of the traditional sectors, such as agriculture, where some potential jobs may exist. But I think that there's, at the same time, a lot of opportunities there. And yet, more than 70% of young workers are employed in informal or precarious conditions with low wages, minimal protection, and limited prospect for advancements. Unfortunately, the challenges of youth unemployment go beyond the economics. It also includes social and political spheres. Social cohesion, as we've seen on the continent, is at risk in many countries, with many young people taking to the streets to demand jobs, accountability, or systemic reforms. A few cases in point that I can speak of now in our region, Madagascar, but we've also seen a lot in Kenya, Morocco, and really spearheaded by young people, the Gen Zs, as we call them, which in a way it is causing a lot of political, but also economic instability with lasting intergenerational impacts in some instances. And yet young people are not just job seekers. And I think a lot of us, we've moved as a continent from seeing them as job seekers. I think we all know that there are innovators, entrepreneurs, and agents of change. We just came back from Eswatini ourselves, where we had a regional annual meeting with the member states that we save, where we had the opportunity of having a few young innovators join us in the conversations, not as observers, but really as entrepreneurs, but also active participants that brought a lot to share on the table. And coincidentally, because the conversation that we were having was around the FCFTA implementation and making sure that we're powering private sector to fully participate in that conversation, but to take advantage of the opportunity of the FCFTA. So we did see that firsthand in terms of what they brought to the table. And therefore, to fully unleash their full potential, the conversation must move from remedial job creation programs that we often have to private sector-enabled structural transformation driven through inclusive industrialization and intra-Africa trade supported. The role of the AFCFTA, therefore, I think in the whole discussion of industrialization become key because it does, as we all know, offers a historic opportunity to transform economic structure of Southern Africa and to generate employment and entrepreneurship opportunities to reshape economies for the sub-region and Southern African youth. Just to share very quickly that, as ECA, we, through our economic report on Africa on 2025, highlights some of those critical areas where we can actually, as a continent, develop regional value chains which we feel it is essential to the effective implementation of the AFCFTA agreement. But not only that, to create the necessary jobs that we do need to have for youth, for women, but also for other segments of population that, you know, they are in the employment space. Key sectors for regional value chains in this regard from our study included processed foods, tourism, health, pharmaceuticals, automotive industries, wood, paper, metals, and other manufactured products, and to some extent, of course, textile, apparel, and leather as some of those industries. And I think that there are a lot more opportunities here if you just look at those sectors where the youth can actively engage in gainful employment. The implementation of the AFCFTA, therefore, has the potential to accelerate Africa's transition to renewables with an estimated $22.4 billion of cumulative investments required in the energy space, for example, for electricity generation, transmission, and redistribution of infrastructure between 2025 and 2040. Again, another area where we've also seen a lot of engagement of the youth in energy transition within the sub-region. Such transformational dynamics can generate tremendous opportunities for youth to be employed in formal sectors, absorbing a lot of the informality that we're seeing currently, and for the youth-led enterprises to participate in the regional value chains that I've mentioned, but many more that also we haven't mentioned here. And hopefully that we can, you know, in the conversation that we're going to have a little later on, hear more in terms of the opportunities here. Honorable Minister, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the AFCFTA protocol on women and youth in trade presents a concrete initiative for advancing inclusion, ensuring that young people and women are not left behind in continental market. The implementation of this protocol, therefore, is key, and more focus should be on removing binding constraints for young people to access markets, technology, and finance. And for the AFCFTA opportunities to materialize, national industrial policies must be youth-friendly. The investment climate must also be favorable, and skills and education and ecosystems must evolve to meet the demands of the 21st century industries. And above all, of course, is the critical issue of the agreement really being implemented fully. Again, like I mentioned, I think the conversation that we had and which we need to build from Eswatini last week is one of those that really is pushing the boundaries on implementation. And to fully exploit the potential of the AFCFTA, regional and national implementation frameworks must integrate youth representation into industrial policy implementation and coordination mechanisms as well, and ensuring that young people and entrepreneurs and innovators are actively involved in the development of value chain development and market access initiatives. Honorable Ministers, Minister Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen and colleagues, Southern Africa must move beyond raw commodity exports and promote beneficiation and industrial diversification. Moving up the value chain through resource upgrading and industrial diversification is the most direct way to create decent jobs for young people. For example, initiatives that ECA as an organization are supporting within the sub-region, such as the agro-industrial processing zone in Zambia and Zimbabwe, mineral beneficiation in Zambia and DRC, and the beef or leather value chains that is situated in Botswana, South Africa, Namibia, Zambia, Zimbabwe, Lesotho, and Eswatini, and a few other countries, demonstrate that value addition can create sustainable jobs while supporting green transition. Circular economy initiatives, and there are many, and we see this a bit more in South Africa, but also in in Mauritius, where recycling electronic waste and manufacturing offer additional opportunities for youth entrepreneurs, but these require policy coherence and regulation that are conducive to innovative and access to finance, I think, which becomes, and more, not becomes, but it is quite a binding constraint for a lot more of youth entrepreneurs in this sense. And as mentioned, I think we do need, as a sub-region and individual countries and a continent, address the skills gap and the mismatch that I spoke to at the beginning, which prevents a lot of young people from entering emerging industries. And therefore, there's a need for greater alignment between education systems, technical and vocational education and training institutions and industrial policy priorities. I think in this regard, public-private partnerships become key that would help and bridge the skills and knowledge gaps that exist between education systems, but also industries as well. Financing, as also already mentioned, is another key factor. Young entrepreneurs, especially women, face barriers to credit and investments. Innovative mechanisms, youth venture capital funds, blended finance, and guarantee schemes can unlock capital for youth-led industrial startups in this regard. Through its partnership with SADC and national governments, ECA continues to support policy innovation, capacity development, and regional value chain analysis to ensure that industrialization translates into inclusive job creation. I know that in the conversations, perhaps my colleagues will come and share some of the initiatives that we have actually started working in this regard, to making sure that we're providing, whether it's step-by-step guide in terms of trading under the AFCFTA, but on the other side, also working directly with private sector to ensure that they become part of the many value chains, regional value chains that I mentioned earlier. The policy implications and therefore, but also the institutional imperatives become clear in this sense. I think for us, pointing us to where we do need to focus a lot of our efforts. Some of that will be mainstreaming youth inclusion in all trade and industrial policies, not as beneficiaries, but as co-creators of the industrial transformation agenda. We also do need to strengthen regional value chains, particularly in agro-processing, mineral beneficiation, and green energy, to absorb youth labor across a lot of the borders. We do need to invest in enabling infrastructure for a lot of the spaces that youth are, especially in science, technology, and innovation, and digital connectivity, reducing logistic costs and bridging the digital divide to empower youth participation more fully in e-commerce and cross-border trade. These steps, I think, critically require political commitment, institutional coordination, and youth representation in economic decision-making platforms. In conclusion, Excellency, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, given the challenges that our sub-region is faced with in addressing youth unemployment, addressing it is not just an option, it is central to achieving inclusive growth and ensuring social stability, but also economic stability within Southern Africa. We must therefore translate policy frameworks into action using AFCFTA protocol on women and youth as a platform for transformative inclusion. As ECA, you do have our commitment to continue working with the SADC Secretariat, with youth organizations, governments, as well as other partners to develop evidence-based industrial policies, strengthening skills, and where possible, education systems that would expand opportunities for youth entrepreneurship and value addition. And allow me also to seize this moment to turn Southern African hoping that we can turn Southern African demographic dynamism into a force for productive growth, building on Africa that works for its youth through trade, innovation, and industrial transformation. Thank you so much for your kind attention. And again, really thankful to the Minister for joining us, and really looking forward to the conversation beyond this, but also the insights that the Minister and other colleagues will have in this discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Madam Kamwendo, for your very compelling, welcoming remarks. I think you put the case quite clearly on the table, and you set the tone really, and the thrust of this discussion quite squarely. Allow me to also recognize sorry, my apologies, to recognize Mr. Gondo, who's the coordinator of the SADC Youth Forum. And more importantly, allow me to recognize the presence of the Minister of Employment and Labor from the Republic of South Africa. And I would also like to then at this point welcome Mr. Mishek Gondo to give his statement. Mr. Mishek Gondo.
Thank you very much, Madam, for this opportunity. And allow me to acknowledge the presence of the Minister, Mokosi, and the former speaker, Madam Kamwendo, and thank you for highlighting the issue of co-creation with the young people, and recognize also yourself as our moderator, Ms. Kuarira. Before I give my brief statement on this important occasion, allow me also to acknowledge the presence of SADC Youth Forum co-chair, Madam Ansa from Madagascar in this meeting, and the Speaker of SADC Youth Parliament joining us from the UK, Madam Honorable Patience Mnyenyembe, for also joining this meeting. Ladies and gentlemen and esteemed guests, distinct participants, all protocol observed. Indeed, as highlighted by the previous speaker, the importance of youth inclusion in all aspects, including the participation in economic development. It is indeed, ladies and gentlemen, a privilege to present before you today at this pivotal event, which is co-convened by United Nations Economic Commission for Africa and the SADC Youth Forum, SAYOF. This gathering is a vital part of the Second World Summit for Social Development 2025. And we believe that together we are here to address a pressing challenge, as said before, that affects millions of young people across our region, youth unemployment, and how we leverage inclusive industrialization, value addition, and trade to address the former, as I mentioned. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm delighted today that this discussion is coming at a point where the young people constitute a larger percentage in terms of demographic population in our region. Southern Africa is at a crossroads. Our young population is vibrant, as we know, and innovative, bringing them with potential. Yet many young people struggle for meaningful employment. Today, we will dive into the trends and root causes of this crisis, drawing on diverse country and specific experiences to understand not just the symptoms, but the underlying factors that contribute to it. Ladies and gentlemen, the unemployment rates among youth in our region are alarmingly high. Structural factors such as economic disparities, inadequate educational opportunities, limited access to resources worsen this crisis. As we examine these trends, it is crucial to assess the effectiveness of existing policies particularly those focused on youth skills development and enterprise support. The question is, are we equipping our young people with necessary skills to thrive in evolving job markets? And another question that I want to pose is, are our policies adequately fostering entrepreneurship, supporting youth-led initiatives as well? As we move forward, ladies and gentlemen, we must co-design innovative policy and financial measures that can scale up youth-led enterprises and create jobs. This is especially important for young women who often face additional barriers in accessing the resources and opportunities that they need. We must ensure all that young people have equitable access to these opportunities, recognizing that diverse drives innovation and economic growth. Through our side of business innovation entrepreneurship cluster, represented in these meetings by Mr. Sepo Mangoma from South Africa, we are trying our level best through collaboration to foster this initiative. Recently, we are part of the initiative by SADC and Auda NEPAD to capacitate young people in the SADC region for skills innovation, and we look forward to work. We are also working within the agro sector with AGRA, among others, to empower young people to take farming as a business. A significant part of our dialogue will focus on bringing the gap between education, institution, and industry, aligning our skills development strategies, particularly in technical and vocational education and training, STEM, with the needs of emerging manufacturing sectors is crucial. Ladies and gentlemen, if we foster partnership between education institutions and industry, we can create pathway for our youth that are not only relevant, but also sustainable. Additionally, we have unique opportunity with the Africa Continental Free Trade Area to leverage regional value chain development and resource beneficiation. We can harness these frameworks and we can create sustainable employment opportunities, particularly for youth-led small and medium enterprises. Exploring how these initiatives can support job creation, entrepreneurship in our commitment is very essential and fundamental. As I move to conclusion, this need to share innovation and best practices from across the region, learning from one another with the help of foster entrepreneurship, enhance job creation, encourage youth participation in trade and industry. This exchange of ideas is crucial to develop a robust ecosystem that supports our young people, all our young people. Ultimately, our discussion aims to produce practical recommendations that will help leverage national and regional industry strategy for youth enterprise, development, and job creation. We need, ladies and gentlemen, to forge stronger links between industry, planners, financiers, youth innovators, to ensure that our youth are integrated into economic fabric and our region as well. As we engage in these discussions, let us remember the crucial importance of innovative financing mechanism, policy that support youth-led entrepreneurship, aligning skills development with involving demands of industry and trade is vital. Together, we can deepen our conversation on new partnership models between the public sector, the private industry, the financial institutions, paving the way for brighter future for our youth. In conclusion, I urge each of you to contribute your insights and experience as we work towards a shared understanding of the drivers of youth unemployment in Southern Africa. Together, we can formulate actionable strategies that not only address these pressing issues, but also empower young people to lead the way in shaping our economic future. As Southern Africa Youth Forum, or SADC Youth Forum, we are eager to collaborate to empower youth in our beloved Southern Africa region. I thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Gondo, for that impassioned speech. I would say that listening to the two keynotes so far, yes, there is a chorus and there's almost a ringtone to the issues that are affecting our youth in the region or the issues that are holding employment back. And at this point, I request Aruna to assist me in introducing the minister who's going to give us a keynote.
Thank you, Sekai. Since you are breaking, I will just introduce our next speaker, His Excellency Honorable Seliso Mokosi, Minister of Employment and Labor, Kingdom of Lesotho. Over to you, sir. Excellency. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam. I hope everybody can hear me. Hello?
Yes, sir, you are audible. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much. Let me start by saying greetings from Lesotho, particularly from the Minister of Labor and Employment in Lesotho, to everybody, but in particular, I must say greetings to you, Mrs. Eunice G. Kamwendo, Director, ECA, Sub-Regional Office for Southern Africa, Mrs. Sekai Kuvarika, sorry for my pronunciation, Chief Executive Officer, Confederation of Zimbabwean Industries, Mr. Kondo, Coordinator, SADC Youth Forum, distinguished panelists, esteemed youth delegates, representatives from the private sector, academia, and civil society. Ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning from Doha again, Qatar in particular. First of all, allow me, ladies and gentlemen, to thank the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, in particular its Sub-Regional Office for Southern Africa, and the SADC Youth Forum for this interesting side event that places a spotlight on the critical issue of youth unemployment in Southern Africa and the role that inclusive industrialization, trade, and value addition should play in addressing it. International and regional trade and industrialization are priority levers for Africa's development as enshrined in the AU Agenda 2063. Therefore, it is highly pertinent to assess their effectiveness in addressing youth unemployment. Let me also thank in a special way the panelists who participate today in this solutions session to inform policy formulation intended to build conducive environment for youth employability in our SADC region. This solution session at the margins of the United Nations World Summit for Social Development is both timely and relevant. Recent events in Madagascar and Nepal have reminded us of the risk of social tensions and political upheavals that countries can face when the concerns and aspirations of the young are not addressed. Youth unemployment is an economic and social issue that should occupy part of place in our development agenda. Not addressing it will endanger sustainable development. The young are the cornerstone of our collective future. Our region and the world must place the aspirations of the young at the center of development strategies and policies. Young people around the world can be effective drivers of structural economic transformation, factors of dynamic innovation, generators for positive societal change, and the right leaders for fighting climate change, provided, however, that they are equipped with the necessary skills, resources, and opportunity to act as catalysts for the transformational change the world needs. Youth unemployment in Southern Africa and its cost. A youth who is unemployed is a youth whose human potential is not being optimized to contribute effectively to countries' sustainable development and to societal improvement over time. Youth unemployment is costly to our economies, societies, communities, and families, both in current terms and in terms of foregone future potential. It acts as a track on economic growth, reduces fiscal revenues, limits innovations, perpetuates poverty, inhibits intergenerational mobility through labor markets, motivates brain drain and irregular migration, and poses high risk of social unrest. Unfortunately, youth net rates, that is, youth not in employment, nor in education, or in training in Africa, ladies and gentlemen, are higher than in many parts of the world, though it should be recognized that youth unemployment has become a global concern. In Southern Africa, youth unemployment ranges from 29.6% in Angola to 49.1% in Botswana, 36.7% in Eswatini, 49.6% in Lesotho, 30.1% in Malawi, 17.1% in Mauritius, 19.2% in Mozambique, 31.9% in Namibia, 34.6% in South Africa, 44.1% in Zambia, and 49.6% in Zimbabwe. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, these are alarming numbers. Meanwhile, our region in Southern Africa continues to be afflicted by a range of socio-economic challenges whose resolution can much benefit from the full economic and social participation and drive of the young, be it as advocates of climate change, demanding collective action, innovators driving the development of new and emerging green and digital technologies, and apps to resolve sustainable development challenges, be it as entrepreneurs tapping into new markets and into new avenues of growth, or as actors pushing for reforms of institutions and processes to create better business and trade enabling environments. I believe that the generation of employment and entrepreneurship opportunities for the young, as well as the setup of appropriate infrastructure and initiatives to develop the human potential of the youth, should be at the heart of our economic and social development priorities. The youth must also be given the democratic space to voice their opinions, share their ideas, and test their innovations. As Amartya Sen, the Nobel Prize winner in economics, argued, development is about freedom and enhancing the capabilities set of individuals, as well as enlarging their opportunity sets. This is even more relevant when we talk of the young. Our development strategies should be centered on human development, especially among the young, bent on enlarging their opportunities set and their capabilities. We must arm our youth with hope for a better future, and equip them with the means to create this better future. I wish to advocate, ladies and gentlemen, for countries in the Southern African sub-region to pay special attention to the aspiration of the young and lay down and strengthen foundations for empowering the youth to be critical enablers of transformational economic, social, and environmental change. I am confident that today's solution session will shed light on the root cause of youth unemployment in Southern Africa. But please allow me to share some insights from the case of my country, the Kingdom of Lesotho. According to a World Bank study, 2021, 44% of 20 to 35-year-olds and 29% of 15 to 19-year-olds in Lesotho are not in education, employment, or training. Lesotho has a very young population, with 18 to 35-year-olds constituting about 40% of citizens and about 60% of the working age population. This youth bulge presents an opportunity to harness a demographic dividend for the country. But in the absence of income generating and employment opportunities, can constitute a serious socioeconomic challenge, which is why my ministry, the Ministry of Gender, Youth and Social Development, and the government have made the tackling of unemployment among the youth a top priority. Youth unemployment, however, is placed within a broader agenda aimed at empowering the youth. A recent Afrobarometer survey revealed that unemployment is the top concern among young people in Lesotho. 67% identified it as the most important issue for the government to address. Many of the young people interviewed in the survey cited the following as main obstacles to their employability: lack of work experience, limited interest in certain types of jobs, and inadequate training. Tackling youth unemployment in Lesotho will necessitate a mix of several approaches at micro, meso, and macro levels. At the micro level, we need reforms to education system to prepare our young to the future of work. We also need reforms in the labor market, including providing employers with incentives to employ the young through apprenticeships, as well as training in the young to respond to the needs of the labor markets. At meso level, we need to address urban-rural gaps and equip communities with facilities for the young to set up their businesses and to harness digitalization to engage in income-generating activities. The perennial challenge of access to finance for young entrepreneurs must be tackled. At macro level, we need to accelerate investment in drivers of youth entrepreneurship, such as science, technology and innovation, energy and transport infrastructure, as well as invest in job expansion in the formal sector, including through public works and accelerated economic and export diversification of the country. Such economic diversification will have to rest on accelerated industrial transformation and industrial diversification, and a better leveraging of regional and international trade. Youth unemployment, ladies and gentlemen, has to be tackled through a holistic and whole of government approach that rests on a broad set of interventions at macro level, meso and macro levels, encompassing, to name a few, human development investment in science, technology, and innovation, infrastructure development, labor market reforms, entrepreneurship development, financial services expansion, of course, better harnessing of trade, matched by accelerated inclusive industrialization and value additions. I shall come back to these 2 points later as they are at the heart of the theme of this solution session. I am proud to say that in Lesotho we have developed a national youth strategy 2024-2030 with support from the United Nations Development Programme. Our national youth strategy is anchored in the Lesotho National Youth Policy 2017 to 2030, the National Youth Bill, and the Extended National Strategic Development Plan 2, NSDP 2, 2023-24, 2027-28. The mission and goal of the youth strategy aims to create a society where every young person in Lesotho is empowered, equipped, and actively engaged in building a prosperous and inclusive nation while nurturing their potential and ensuring their full participation in shaping the nation's future. The mission is to coordinate and implement a comprehensive youth-centered development that promotes dignity, well-being, and active participation in socio-economic, cultural, and political life, enhancing their capabilities and opportunities for a transformative impact on Lesotho. The goal of the youth strategy is to empower Lesotho youth through their effective integration into the socio-economic issues of the country. While based on a set of principles, the strategic framework of the National Youth Strategy of Lesotho is built around 6 interconnected thematic areas, of which 1, employment creation and entrepreneurship, and 2, innovation and technology occupy an important place. Under employment creation and entrepreneurship, the strategic objective is to reduce youth unemployment to below 15% by stimulating the sustainable youth-led enterprises, fostering innovation, and creating employment opportunities. Specific activities include A, collaborating with the Minister of Education and Training to review the current curriculum for vocational training. 2, strengthening access to comprehensive and timely information about employment and economic opportunities for the youth. 3, strengthening comprehensive financial literacy programs tailored to different youth segments. 4th, expanding and diversifying internship programs by fostering private sector engagement through tax incentives, recognition programs, and partnerships. And lastly, strengthening and expanding cooperatives for youth, small and medium and micro enterprises to enable them to address common challenges, access shared resources, and leverage group-based initiatives for economic and operational benefits. Please allow me to cite 3 specific examples of initiatives from Lesotho aimed at empowering the youth. 1, the government of Lesotho, supported by the United Nations Development Programme, launched an initiative for youth empowerment aimed at promoting youth entrepreneurship in key sectors, including agriculture, science, technology, tourism, and the creative economy, formerly known as Sebabazo. The initiative seeks to reduce youth unemployment by supporting innovative youth-led businesses and attracting local and international investment in youth enterprises. Secondly, Bacha Entrepreneurship Project, a collaborative initiative between Basotho Enterprises Development Corporation and Standard Lesotho Bank and Revenue Services Lesotho, is dedicated to empowering Lesotho employed youth to become entrepreneurs and job creators. Thirdly, with the right Honorable Prime Minister having declared youth unemployment a national disaster, the Disaster Management Authority, in collaboration with the relevant stakeholders, government agencies, and development partners, to develop a national response plan to addressing youth unemployment, which is to be presented to Cabinet. Let me end by turning to the main angle of this solution session, ladies and gentlemen, namely on leveraging inclusive industrialization, value addition, and trade to address youth unemployment in Southern Africa. I unequivocally believe that the harnessing of international and regional trade through the African continental free trade area are essential levers for addressing youth unemployment. Youth-based entrepreneurs driven by opportunity rather than necessity can enlarge their market access opportunities through trade to raise their chances of survival and expansion. When successful, youth-based enterprises can create jobs for other youth. But youth entrepreneurship is only part of the solution. Not all young can be nurtured into entrepreneurs by choice. Youth unemployment must also be absorbed by the creation of decent jobs in a range of economic sectors. And this is where economic transformation and economic diversification through inclusive industrialization comes in. The continent and the region have as policy imperatives to promote industrial development and value addition supported by trade. These imperatives have been clearly laid out in the SADC industrialization strategy. Lesotho has been able to create jobs so far by developing textile and apparel sector. This sector today is under threat both by the lapse of Africa Growth and Opportunities Act and by the imposition of high import tariffs from the United States of America. The current context and its associated challenges are a stark reminder for countries like Lesotho to step up economic and export diversification by accelerating industrialization through global and regional trade. The current context has also demonstrated that market dependence on a few countries from the north is risky. Countries like Lesotho must diversify their markets, and the African continent free trade area can provide the opportunity to achieve just that. Increasingly, Lesotho will have to develop productive capacities to tap into neighboring markets and reduce its dependence on northern markets. It will not be possible for the region to address youth unemployment on a large scale without accelerated industrialization and the value addition that industrialization can bring, not mentioning opening up possibilities for businesses to integrate in industrial value chains. With support from UNECA, Lesotho is currently engaging in diversification into other sectors, namely the automotive sector, to integrate the regional value chains. The Lesotho National Strategic Development Plan has extended to places industrialization at the heart of Lesotho's transformation from a consumer-based economy to a producer and export-oriented economy. The implementation of Lesotho's industrialization strategy will be critical in ensuring successful achievement of the goals and objectives laid out in Lesotho's national youth strategy. My final words, ladies and gentlemen, are that industrialization value addition and trade are pivotal to addressing youth unemployment in Lesotho, Southern Africa, and the rest of the continent. I therefore call for an accelerated implementation of regional and national industrial policies in the region, along with an accelerated implementation of national trade strategies, including the Africa Continental Free Trade Area Agreement. On this note, panelists and participants, I wish you a very rich and productive engagement, and I look forward to the outcomes of your discussions. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable. Thank you for that speech. Colleagues, allow me to highlight maybe some key observations as I look at this event, which is supposed to be a solutions event. There is clearly a shared understanding of what the challenges are and what the constraints are. And clearly, there is a call on what are the practical policy and program recommendations that can take us forward. So as we move into the panel, we are really going to focus and help us to translate the principles, the logic, and the philosophy that is emerging around how we can advance youth economic empowerment and youth employment, youth economic participation, and generally the economy in the sub-region. So you do get the vocabulary like youth-led, empowerment, inclusive, even industrialization itself. These are terms widely referred to in the concept note, in the speeches that we have given. And you can see that there's also, even reading the questions that have so far been posted on the chat, on the Q&A, that there is a philosophy, there is a direction in terms of how things should go. Our responsibility today is to turn all these into actionable recommendations that can translate these words into tangible results for the region, and particularly for the youth. And I hope that we are going to achieve. We have a very capable panel with us. I will just give the panelists a moment to introduce themselves. If
Moderator, you are breaking, eh? We cannot hear you at all.
She's breaking. So
can
if
tell us their
Yes, I
involvement.
think that's, we cannot hear you at all, eh?
Ms. Sekai, please resume. Thank you.
Or their key interest in the it looks like I had lost connection there. I don't know
Yes.
if anyone heard.
No, we cannot hear you, eh? Moderator.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Abdullahi. I will liaise with Ms. Sekai. Ms. Sekai, if you could please repeat what you just said. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Can you hear me now?
Yes, please.
Okay, I'll just remove my video for better connectivity. I just commented thanking the minister for his speech and also highlighting that from the presentations that have been given and from the concept note for this session, we can see that there is a shared understanding of our constraints and our challenges. And clearly, it calls for practical policy and program recommendations that can take us forward. So the task for the panel is clear. It is to translate some of the emerging from the analysis that are with us and to translate it so that tangible results in the direction of the aspirations that have been clearly
Hi, Sekai, you're breaking.
Sorry,
Yes. I think that we
It
need
is
to find
also
another solution.
so really to look at the terminologies and try to demystify them and give them a real existence in pursuit of youth economic empowerment.
Sekai, since you're breaking, may I suggest that you invite, you just start the questions? Thank you.
Oh, I think if you can't hear me, maybe I failed. I am in a place that is that's been raining, so the what do you call it? The Starlink is very unstable for Wi-Fi, and I have migrated to mobile data. It doesn't seem to. Okay, may I? I don't know if.
Okay. Director, can we get some guidance here, please? Thank you.
Hi, Aruna. I think it is probably not working, so you may actually ask the questions because I am intermittently on. I think I've tried both solutions and maybe it's not working. I think you can go ahead and ask the questions.
Okay. All right. Director Ozodwa, would you like to come in on how we proceed? She's struggling with internet, which is unfortunate. If not, perhaps suggest that we start ahead with questions for the panelists and we move forward.
Oh, Aruna, maybe just to come quickly to understand the ask. What is so who is supposed to be moderating this session?
It's Sekai, and her internet is failing her, unfortunately.
Okay, I see. I think either Zodwa or yourself can should step in that case.
Okay, in order not to waste time, I'm going to throw the first round of questions to the panelists until we come up with an alternative solution. So apologies for that, colleagues. So we have with us 6 wonderful panelists, and let me ask them to introduce themselves while we come up with a plan B. Thank you very much. So perhaps Mr. Abdoulaye, we have been hearing you, Mr. Abdoulaye of UNESCO. If you can briefly introduce yourself, 1 minute, we introduce all the panelists and then we move on. Over to you, Mr. Abdoulaye Salifou.
Okay, thank you so much. My name is Dr. Abdoulaye Salifou. I am the Chief Education Sector at UNESCO Liaison Office to African Union, to ECA, and the country office to Ethiopia. I am specialized in TVET, higher education, and AI. In my previous position, I work as the regional advisor for higher education and ICT for UNESCO at the continental level, but also I have the opportunity to work as the director of digital campuses and in West Africa region, Central Africa, but also in West Indies. So
thank you
let's stop here.
very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Over to you, Ms. Mishesha Shiwarega from the African Union Commission. Thank you.
I'm very pleased to be with you. My name is Dr. Mishesha Shiwarega. I am associate professor in public sector economics. Currently, I'm working at the African Union as coordinator of youth civic engagement, volunteerism, and I am also lead in youth employment program and coordinating capacity building to the member state to design national policy. I think this is enough. Thank you very much. Over to you.
Aruna, if you're speaking, you're muted.
Yeah, Dr. Hodan Ningba, over to you. Thank you.
Warm greetings. My name is Hod Anyigba from the Africa Labor Research and Education Institute, ITUC Africa. We represent over 18 million working men and women, including the youth on the continent. I serve as ITUC Africa's chief economist and also the executive director of its Labor and Research Education Institute. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Agesan Rajagopal from McKinsey & Company, over to you, sir.
Thank you, and good morning, good afternoon, wherever you may be. My name is Agesan. I'm a partner from McKinsey Johannesburg. I lead our energy and materials practice across Africa, but I've also done quite a bit of work in South Africa around the future of work and the implications of digital and AI, and also done some research on how to grow SMEs competitively in South Africa. Looking forward to the discussion.
Yes, thank you very much. And we are very happy to have a young entrepreneur with us, Ms. Sisha Nyanga, who will introduce herself. Over.
Thank you so much. And for correction, I'm not an entrepreneur. My name is Sisha Nyanga. I am a youth leader and advocate by practice and a regional integration specialist by qualification. I think I'll stop there right now. Thank you.
Thank you. One needs to be entrepreneurial to be an advocate. So thank you for being here. And last but not least, Mrs. Verena Tandrayan Raghubar.
Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dr. Tandrayan Raghubar. I'm actually based at the University of Mauritius. I am an associate professor in economics and currently the dean of the Faculty of Social Sciences and Humanities. I work on trade and labor market issues as well as gender issues in Africa. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we have reached almost an hour into the session. This was not planned, but we were very happy to hear some very useful insights from the Minister of Lesotho, sharing experiences about Lesotho, a country which has one of the highest youth unemployment rates in the world besides South Africa. So to kickstart the discussion, colleagues, I would like to invite Ms. Sisha from the African Union Commission to kind of set the stage for us. And if Ms. Sisha, if you could try to make us understand what are the root causes of youth unemployment in Africa, what are the challenges to address it, and potential opportunities. So if you have 5 minutes to kind of set the stage for us. Over to you, Ms. Sisha. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The previous speakers, including His Honorable the Minister, the Regional Director, have said a good foundation for the discussion. I am really a bit bewildered. What am I going to add as a new? So I am going to refocus or reiterate what has been already said. At the root cause, as it has been mentioned, I would say the first and the foremost is the economic structure of sub-Saharan African countries. This is characterized by low industrialization, as has been said, dependence on primary sectors. 89% of sub-Saharan African economies are classified as commodity dependent economies, where 55% of the African workforce is employed in agriculture, while industry account only for 12% of the total employment. The second critical root cause of youth unemployment is demographic pressure. Africa has got more than 400 million youth at the moment, while it has a demographic advantage, what we call demographic dividend, based on the African Union roadmap on demographic dividend. Unfortunately, labor force growth exceeds job creation, and 12 million young people are seeking job each year, but the continent is creating only about 3 million formal jobs annually, leaving gaps of nearly 9 million new interns without decent employment opportunity. The third critical problem or cause, I would say, as it has been mentioned, is skill mismatch, where education is not aligning with the market demand. As per the ILO statistics, 35% of the African youth are in jobs that match their education. Roughly two-thirds of them are either over or underqualified. 60% of the employers in Africa report difficulty in finding suitable skilled works. The fourth one is limited finance. I think that has been also elucidated, and weak entrepreneurship support. There is a barrier to credit in the business startup. Over 70% of small and medium enterprises in Africa lack access to formal credit, and the continent faces an estimated 300 billion American dollar financing gap for small and medium-sized enterprise. The fifth one is around governance weaknesses. There is poor policy coordination. Based on my experience in the African Union, I do see weak implementation. There is no misgiving when it's come to youth employment, as we have already heard. There are different initiatives, starting with the youth charter, talking about Ouagadougou Plus 10, the Malubo Declaration, the AUILO youth employment strategies. Unfortunately, the implementation is not as expected. The last critical issue that I would like to raise, probably not sufficiently addressed by the preceding speakers, is the informality and inequality. What do I mean? Dominance of informal jobs, higher female unemployment. About 83% of jobs in Africa are in informal sector, including over 90% of youth employment. The female unemployment rate is almost twice higher than that of men. So the challenges are more or less has been raised by the speakers who have spoken before me. But to reiterate, skill mismatch, limited job creation, particularly our over-reliance on agriculture and extractive industries, away from boosting industrialization and digital economy, which has got a potential of hiring more than 230 million African youth. Poor access to finance, I did mention the informality of our employment is a critical problem that we have to address by SME formalization and introducing social protection. Weak policy coordination has to be tackled. My last contribution will be, what opportunities do we have? Like I have said, bypassing, the opportunities are there. I don't see any misgiving when it's come to coming up with policies, strategies, framework, but the implementation is a critical problem. So we have to move from aspiration to action. The first opportunity, low-hanging opportunities, the continental regional opportunities like the African Continental Free Trade Area, which has the capacity of creating 2 to 3 million, some even raises up to 80 million formal jobs. And we do have the AU Agenda 2063, the second Moonshoot projects, particularly Aspiration 6, Aspiration 1, Aspiration 2 has got a target on use the targets, and the AU digital transformation is another important opportunity to tap into. The ILO decent work use program, the green job initiative. At the national level also we can learn, activate skills training, and the focus of Kenya, the Ethiopian, and also Nigeria is really worth studying. Use enterprise and the small and the medium funds specially tailored to address the financial critical problems of youth and women-led enterprises is another important low-hanging fruit which we can capitalize on. I think this will be enough. Thank you very much. Over to you, moderator.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mishesha, for this very succinct, but it's still comprehensive outlook on one of the potential causes of youth unemployment. And I think one is even tempted to say it's the usual suspects that we are talking about. First, the predominance of agriculture, but it's not a high value added agriculture. It is still low value added, low productivity agriculture. And I think it would be fair to say that in many countries, young people are not interested in going into the agriculture sector. And this also is part of the issue. Creating jobs that will appeal to the young. So you have enumerated a lot of factors. The lack of industrialization, which is, we need to cut the predominance of agriculture through structural transformation, through agro-processing, developing high-value-added sectors, and again, accelerating industrialization, which is at the core of our mandate here at SRO-SA. Important issue of demographic pressure. We cannot have this dialogue without talking to people who work in the area of population control and demographic policies. The mismatch between what the market needs and what is out there, that again, it speaks to, we will talk about it later, the need perhaps to reform our educational system, limited finance, which always comes up. If we want to create entrepreneurship opportunities for the young, we need to overcome the burden of limited finance. Very important, governance weaknesses. Sometimes in discussions, we tend to shy away from this issue of governance, but it has to be tackled. It's the big elephant in the room. And of course, the issue of informality. But there are opportunities. I think there are strategies, policies, and frameworks out there. The minister talked about, for instance, Lesotho has a national youth strategy, but the challenge always is about implementation and also political will. Invite our youth advocate and leader, Ms. Sisha from Botswana, to tell us a bit about the experience of Botswana. So Sisha, what are for you the root causes of youth unemployment in Botswana? And do you think that current policy responses are being effective? Can you give us some idea of what is working and what is not working in Botswana? Over to you, Sisha. And please, panelists, please put your camera on when you speak so that we can get to know you also better. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you so much. I think I would firstly say Dr. Mishesha said it all. Mine is to just complement what he said, but in the specific case of Botswana. And I would say the root causes of unemployment in Botswana still go back to issues of structural economic structure, because our country has historically been built on mining and specifically diamond mining. And bear in mind, this is a sector that is only capital intensive and not labor intensive. By so saying, we see it contributing highly to the GDP of the economy, but it does not necessarily create jobs, especially for young people. And secondly, to complement Dr. Mishisha, we have a clear skills mismatch, where we have most of our talented and educated young people being trained in areas that do not quite match where opportunities are. We also have a huge number of them which are not in employment, in education, or training. And the question still remains, how much effort do we put in ensuring that they are equipped with the necessary and relevant skills to tap into industry opportunities? And third of all, in terms of the causes of unemployment, I would say we speak or we preach entrepreneurship. It's now a national, a regional, and a continental buzzword. And rightly so, many of the young people still face barriers when it comes to finance, when it comes to mentorship, and even just the basic networks that can help a business grow just beyond its survival. And in terms of policy responses, allow me to say Botswana has done quite a lot. We have seen initiatives such as the Youth Development Fund, the Government Graduate or Volunteer Scheme, and just the broader national employment policy. We also have the current research agenda, which actually gives us renewed hope and focus on value chains, on agriculture, and the creative economy. Now, some of these efforts are actually starting to show promise. For instance, a number of young people are now getting integrated into value chain initiatives. Our government is also now more intentional about including youth priorities in national planning. And the idea as well of aligning with the African Continental Free Trade Area also brings in a sense of possibility to say, you know, it's not just the domestic jobs we are looking at anymore, but it's about connecting our youth enterprises to continental opportunities. But these, ladies and gentlemen, don't go without challenges, because many of these programs actually tend to operate in silos, which means most efforts are duplicated and resources are stretched thin. The bridge between training and actual employment is actually quite weak. And too often, youth businesses are supported with funding, but not enough with market access or mentorship, which are the actual game changers. So one would ask, what's next? I think the focus has to shift now from just short-term job creation to long-term structural transformation, which means our industrial policies, for instance, they have to deliberately include youth-led enterprises. They have to deliberately include education systems that talk to the private sector and strong integration of the youth into the AfCFTA-driven value chains. And perhaps most importantly, to conclude my answer, in as much as it has been mentioned, allow me to repeat and say, we as the young people need to be treated as not passive beneficiaries of development and start being acknowledged and treated as the co-creators of the solutions themselves. Because ultimately, for us to tackle youth unemployment isn't about just finding us jobs. It's about us building economies that work better for the youth and with the youth. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Sisha. It's starting to pour here in Lusaka, so hopefully internet will be stable. But two keywords that you said, very important. We need to start shifting from short-term job creation measures, palliative measures, to long-term structural transformation. And an important point that you made, that we need to stop viewing the young as passive beneficiaries of development to being co-creators of solutions. So Mr. Agesan Rajagopal from McKinsey, we know that perhaps a few years ago, McKinsey came up with an exciting knowledge product about the future of work. And when we talk about long-term structural transformation and involving the young as co-creators of solutions, we instantly think about the big world of digital technologies and digital transformation, because this is, leveraging digitalization is something that will appeal to the young. So if you could tell us a bit about what are your thoughts about how digitalization and digital technologies can address this issue of youth unemployment in Southern Africa, but you can talk about South Africa as an example, and also your thoughts about the future of work and where opportunities will lie for the young on this continent and in our region in order to help address this issue. Over to you, Mr. Agesan.
Thank you so much. I think you mentioned the report that we did a few years ago, and I'll start with that, where we looked at the future of work in South Africa, and there's a big debate about, well, will digitization, automation, and now AI replace jobs, and we will have a big problem. What that work showed was, and this is before the recent Gen AI revolution that's happening. So of course it's changing, but probably in the same direction. What we found was, yes, there may be jobs, there will be jobs that get replaced. And we saw that there would be about 3.3 million jobs at risk in South Africa from automation, digitization, etc. It's probably more now. But when you look at the impact that automation, digitization, and AI can have if fully and responsibly embraced by organizations and countries, there are opportunities to create even more jobs. And that's where we found there were 4 million plus jobs that could be created, and net 1.2 million jobs additional, even after considering some job losses. And this is through greater productivity. Productivity makes us more competitive. It allows us to compete more globally. It allows us to sell more locally. It allows us to have more economic activity. And that's an important thing which creates jobs. Secondly, by building the digital infrastructure, networks, AI, data centers, all of this, you also create jobs that people can work in software roles, in how you engage customer engagement through AI, etc. That's new jobs that come in. And then there are even jobs that we don't even know exist today, that don't exist today, that will be created in the future as all of this evolves. And that's why it was interesting to see that net, when we fully embrace this, we can create more jobs. And that's, I think, the important message. Now, when you look across Africa, I would say second message I have is, recently we did a report to look at the economic opportunity from generative AI and digital. And what we found there is looking at mining, banking, retail, the public sector, telecoms, we found that there's an opportunity of $60 to $100 billion of economic potential value from generative AI alone. And this is exciting and something that we can work towards, because that means that links to this productivity and economic activity point that I mentioned when it comes to the future of work. There are jobs. If we can create that value, that means we will have more to spend in our economies. That creates opportunity for others. That creates more jobs. So my main message then is we need to embrace it. If we embrace it, there's going to be opportunity. And if we don't embrace it, some of that opportunity may end up elsewhere. And we may end up consuming digital AI tools, etc., from other countries where those jobs get created. Couple of exciting examples just to close off. One example in South Africa of an industry that really has embraced this is the global business services or business process outsourcing sector. They set a target to create 500,000 new jobs by 2030. And then they set this target in 2020, 2019. They already created 14,000 new jobs by 2024. And there's a sector that is embracing technology and AI, such that even during COVID, some parts of the sector was able to operate because of the digital infrastructure that they set up. And this was something that's exported, globally competitive. The accent works, the time zone works, and the cost works for global companies and industries to use this service. So I'll stop there just to make sure that there's enough time for the other speakers, but obviously happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rajagopal. The main message is that the continent and the region should embrace the potential coming out of digitalization and digital transformation, and not get into this debate of machines versus human beings, because there are important complementarities between the two. And leveraging digitalization can actually enhance productivity of the young and of everyone on the workplace. And a very important sector is the global business outsourcing sector. And we know that there are developing countries out there like Senegal, the Philippines, that are really taking this business outsourcing sector very seriously. So this leads us to our next panelist and the next set of questions. There are opportunities out there that can be unleashed from new sectors, the digital sector, the green sector, but then we need to prepare our young to be able to embrace it. So Mr. Abdoulaye from UNESCO, speaking from the point of view of UNESCO, what kind of educational reforms do you think the continent has to put in place in order to prepare our young to embrace the future of work and be able to tap into these emerging opportunities? How can we strengthen the links between educational institutions and industry in order to help prepare our young to embrace opportunities that may come from emerging manufacturing, green, and digital industries so that we can better address youth unemployment? Over to you, Mr. Abdoulaye. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, dear moderator. I want to thank, first of all my panelists that has taken the floor before me by highlighting, let's say, the roots causes of unemployment. But from UNESCO side, let us say that we cannot proceed with industrialization. We cannot proceed with agribusiness. We cannot proceed with digitalization without a sound and relevant education system. For instance, in Africa, in Africa, we are experiencing 70 million of out-of-school children, and the teachers are missing. Let's say 50 million of teachers are missing. And at the same time, let's say that 70% of 10 years old cannot read a simple text. So we see that the challenges are the root challenges are coming from education sector. But that's why African Union has dedicated for the first time of its history last year, 2020, to the year of education. And they have highlighted where we need to work, particularly foundational education, but also technical vocational education and entrepreneurship. Having said that, okay, we know that in our continent strategy for education 2016-2025 will expire this year, and our TVET strategy has been already expired, and our science, technology, innovation strategy has already expired. That's why African Union has updated all the three continental strategy, putting emphasis on strong policy, but also to shift from the policy to the implementation. And we need to work on the curriculum. The curriculum need to be in line with the labor market needs. And most of our speaker has highlighted the fact that there is a mismatch between the training that our young graduates receive at school and the need of the labor market. The second one is that we need to reinforce the capacity of our teachers, because if we miss the teaching, the learning of teaching, is meaning that we cannot proceed with all that what we are talking about, digital transformation and including also gain skill. So we need to reinforce the capacity of our teachers, okay? And what does it mean? We need to improve the status of the teachers. So the first reform is to work on to improve the status of the teachers, because the teachers are at the heart of education system, apart from working on the curriculum. Another point that I want to focus on, we need to take into account the mega trends. Of course, we have the digital transformation, but we have also the climate change aspect, particularly education for sustainable development. We need to mitigate the climate effects, bad effects on education system globally. And let me conclude by saying that on this point, that last month, the 1st October, African Union and its partners has launched the Decade of Education, okay? And the Decade of Education has already its own roadmap. The roadmap are the 3 new continental strategy, the new continental strategy for education 2025-2035, the new TVET strategy, including entrepreneurship, and the new science, technology, innovation strategy. All African member states need to now to align their own national strategy to the continental strategy to address the issue of education, because again, I will conclude by saying that the most important cause of unemployment is poor education, poor TVET system, okay, and of course, industrialization and so on. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Salifou, for these complimentary points. The need to strengthen the capacity of teachers, very, very important part. We cannot address youth unemployment without strengthening human capital development, and teachers are at the heart of the story, besides aligning curriculum to labor markets. And, so that we really need this mix of interventions, right, between this dialogue on long-term structural transformation. We need industrialization, but also look at interventions in terms of at more meso and micro level in terms of labor market reforms, which the minister alluded to in his speech. We would like to open the floor for discussion as soon as possible. So let me go to our last 2 panelists and ask them to now focus a bit more on the theme of this event, what is the potential for trade, AFCFTA, industrialization, and value addition. How can trade, AFCFTA, industrialization, and value addition be leveraged to address youth unemployment? And perhaps we can look at the case of Mauritius as an example. So Professor Verena Tandrayan Raghubar, if you could please come in and share some of your insights with us, looking at the case of Mauritius. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, when we refer to the AFCFTA, we know that it is there as a huge market potential, and especially in terms of regional value chain and increasing the participation of African countries within regional value chain. For Mauritius, Mauritius has been focusing for the past years mainly on traditional markets, European markets, the US markets for its trade. And now the AFCFTA represents a potential for Mauritius to go towards the African continent, and by so doing, moving to other markets. And by moving to other markets, it also means increasing production and creating jobs. But we've seen that in Mauritius, youth unemployment is on the high side, and in the sense that female youth unemployment is twice as much as male youth unemployment. It's as high as higher than male youth unemployment. So this large market, which the AFCFTA offers, will try to help Mauritius in terms of greater diversification, moving beyond the traditional sectors and create more, moving to emerging sectors like digital economy, which was mentioned earlier, green economy, and these are potential sectors with job creation there, especially for the young generation. As we know, many African countries depend on the services sector, and Mauritius is no exception to that. Financial services, communication, tourism. Mauritius, being a small island economy, depends a lot on the tourism sector. So trying to create high value employment opportunities for young people in these sectors, because for the AFCFTA, the services economy and like the services sector represent a huge amount in different African countries. So in terms of job creation, focusing on these new sectors, which Mauritius is actually trying to bring forward these new sectors for employment opportunities. Another thing which the AFCFTA can offer, and for Mauritius also, is encouraging MSMEs participation, but youth-led MSMEs, because these large markets will facilitate access of young people to these markets, trying to bring about more MSMEs, but also for them to be competitive, there is a need for incentives. I mean, at the level of the Mauritian economy, there are a number of schemes which are offered. The only problem is that there's still a number of challenges which MSMEs face, especially women MSMEs, in terms of access to finance. And sometimes they are not even aware of the different schemes being provided. So greater information is being provided on these different schemes which are there to boost and to help MSMEs in Mauritius, because they contribute to employment creation. What Mauritius also doing is to focus on niche manufacturing, like pharmaceuticals, etc., higher value added textile, which can create jobs for young people. Something else which we are trying to go about is focusing on green technologies, green value chain incubators, for example, solar panel assembly, organic food processing. These are new sectors which are new economic activities which can bring in employment. Mauritius is also already using tools like the ITC trade map to identify market opportunities for women, and it could be good to be extended to young people as well. What are the market opportunities? How can they tap into that? And this will be, in a way, trying to expand the companies further, create further jobs. The last point, because I know we are running out of time, is focusing on digital trade. We haven't been talking much about digital trade, but this is something which can be taken on board, especially for the young generation, with digital platforms, etc., which are very important. Yeah, I mean, this will be from my side, Aruna, and I'll be happy to answer to any questions and contribute later. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think if we try to summarize a bit where we are going with the issue, as documented in our concept note, there are really two major levels here. One is to absorb this mass of unemployed youth by promoting structural transformation, creating jobs in the formal sector, and that's where industrialization comes in. And then there is a second-pronged approach, which is to create opportunities of entrepreneurship for the young. But as the minister mentioned in his statement, not every young can be an entrepreneur, but really create opportunities for youth entrepreneurs to engage in entrepreneurship by opportunity-driven entrepreneurship. And here the AFCFTA, whether we are talking about creating more jobs in the formal sector or generating entrepreneurship opportunities for the young, the AFCFTA is there to enlarge market access and serve as a lever to promote industrialization and structural transformation on the continent, but also generate more entrepreneurship opportunities for the young. And in the case of Mauritius, you have mentioned a list of sectors that are emerging where the AFCFTA can be leveraged to help countries enter and develop into new sectors, the digital economy, green, renewable energy, financial services, etc. But the point that I would like to make about the AFCFTA is also about the free movement of people, creating opportunities to allow the young to move around the continent and go where the jobs are. And perhaps this will come up a bit later. Dr. Hod Anyingba, last but not least, if you could share your thoughts with us on how can trade, the AFCFTA, industrialization and value addition be leveraged to address youth unemployment in Southern Africa, and what new initiatives perhaps you think should emerge in order to better address this issue of youth unemployment. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you very much. The good thing about speaking last is to summarize. I could just say I agree with all the above, then we can move on. I mean, every meeting or conference on youth unemployment in Africa begins the same way, with frightening statistics. This has been the case today at this key Doha side event. Millions of young women and men wake up every day qualified, capable, and idle. And every meeting ends the same way, or most meetings, hopefully not this one. They end with new reports, new projects, new recommendations, but the problem persists: unemployment. So allow me to be brutally honest today, and I'll come here not just as an economist, but like from a person representing labor on the continent. The real tragedy is not only that our youths are jobless, it is that our governments have grown very comfortable managing unemployment instead of ending it. So you can see that we now in most countries plan for poverty. We budget for despair. And for one reason or another, some people still think aid or reliance on partners would give us that economic growth. So I will go straight into these roots issues when these have been mentioned, and I will talk about the after opportunity. And this crisis, we say it is not natural. It is the result of what? Of policy. We mine copper in Zambia and diamonds in Botswana, yet import the finished cables and jewelry. We raise beef in Namibia, grow tea in Malawi, and harvest cotton in Zimbabwe. Then we buy tinned meat, packaged tea, and foreign clothes. Every raw export is a job exiled. The problem is not youth laziness, as we have seen. It is economic dependency and political fear. For 40 years, neoliberalism told us to liberate, privatize, and wait for the market to deliver. That market delivered, but not for African youth. How do we break from this cycle? How do we produce and get our way out of this crisis? We must stop managing unemployment and start manufacturing employment. So there are three urgent actions. The first is, as Lesotho has done, and we should do even better, we should declare youth unemployment a national emergency. We need to mobilize resources from ministries, and parliaments must support this approach. This is a pandemic. Let us set a national and regional job creation targets with annual reporting. Number two, let us industrialize through local value additions. We need to invest in agro-processing, the leather, the textiles, the furniture, the metal fabrication, the food packaging we have heard about, education, let's boost it so that industries that can absorb this labor can automate it, etc. And the third, of course, we need to train for production, not certificates. Every TVET center must partner with real factory or cooperatives, and these skills must serve production. Now look, AFTA is here for us, and we must move it from paper to production. What do I mean by this? First, the AFTA is giving us an opportunity for African-made goods. So a youth cooperative in Lesotho, sewing uniforms, should trade freely with Malawi and Angola without 14 forms to complete and punitive tariffs. The second is, let us allow these regional value chains to emerge, right? So that Zambian copper smelted in Zimbabwe, drawn into wires in South Africa, fitted into machines assembled in Namibia, that is regional industrialization in motion. The third thing is that, look, we have the Protocol on Women and Youth in Trade, which gives us a legal toolbox. For example, I'll draw your attention to 3 or 4 articles. Article 2, it says, create women and youth in trade and let's give them strategies for job targets. Article 5 talks about reserving industrial park and spaces that have export credit lines for youth and women cooperatives. The question is, are we doing it? Article 7 talks about public trade finance windows for small manufacturers and processors. Article 10 talks about simplifying border rules for small traders and cooperatives. Article 19 talks about annual employment scorecards that are verified by civil society and everybody, including us, the unions. So if we should implement these, after would now become a social contract for jobs, decent jobs, not a neoliberal marketplace. So what we must do, comrades, is to produce, is to protect our economies, and to partner. And this is not new. There are economies in the world that have done this. For example, South Korea. South Korea did this between 1997 and 1998 after the Asian financial crisis, when unemployment rates were more than 30%. And they reduced this to less than 10% in 6 years. Why can't we do the same? And the strategies South Korea used were simple. It was state-led industrial renewal, number one. It was skills investment, number two. And it was a labor market coordination, that tripartite social dialogue system, targeted industrial policy, digital upskilling, etc. So we do not have to reinvent what? The wheel. Let us use the same path that countries like South Korea have used. So in closing, comrades, every unemployed young person in South Africa or in Southern Africa is a dream deferred, a degree without dignity, a heartbeat on hold. We cannot keep analyzing misery. We must organize transformation. Let Parliament debate it weekly. Let budgets reflect it. Let every government be judged by how many decent jobs it creates. If Vietnam could industrialize after war, if Ireland could turn the page from over 35% unemployment to be below 9% in 1 decade, if South Korea did it, why can't Southern African countries also do the same? Let the African Continental Free Trade Area become the workers' plan for production and decent work, not a playground for investors. And let this trade policy, every factory license, every mine agreement answer this question. How many decent union-protected jobs did it create for the youth and for women? Because a job is just not an income, it is an identity, it is dignity, it is peace. I thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ngingba, for these very thought-provoking elements in your response. Very important point that you make, that the youth unemployment is a crisis driven by policy failures and also failures to implement policies and strategies. And every raw material exported, which is not transformed into a finished product on the continent, merely adds to the plight of the unemployed young. And the important message that we need to stop managing unemployment, we need to start manufacturing employment, and free actions are important. Declare youth a national emergency, industrialize local value addition, and trade our young for production. And when it comes to AFTA, really, again, very aligned with ECA's message that we must implement AFTA and move AFTA from paper to production. I think we've had some very a very good round of complementary ideas and complementary thoughts. But to wrap up this session so that we can open the floor for discussion, I'm going to invite each panelist to give us some final thoughts. And on this third round, we will focus on innovative solutions, because this is a solution session. 3 minutes per panelist. Give us your thoughts on what do you think can be innovative measures, innovative initiatives. Though Dr. Ngingba has said we should not reinvent the wheel, but just give us your final thoughts on what you think is not working and what can be done to make it work better in order to address youth unemployment. And if ever you have, share your thoughts with us about measures, initiatives that you think should be, whose implementation should be accelerated in order to address the issue. So let me start with Ms. Meshisha, sorry, Dr. Meshisha, not Miss, Dr. Meshisha from the African Union Commission for your final thoughts on the issue. Over to you, Dr. Meshisha. Thank you.
Thank you very much. To be honest with you, abundantly or disarmingly frank with you, I share the frustration of the last speaker. As I have already said to you, based on the experience I have so far, always we are talking the same issue. Best ideas, game-changing initiatives are out there, but unfortunately we are not capitalizing on them and the scaling up. The South-South learning, even North-South learning around job creation, employment, particularly youth employment, is not up to the magnitude of the current unemployment problem, which is now almost at the verge of out of control with attendant negative consequences. So but before I go into the game-changing initiatives, even this applies for regional economic communities, multilateral organizations working on youth employment. I think we need better coordination. I do see fragmentation, not only at the government level, member state level. Sometimes we are also the reason for having proliferation of various initiatives. One partner doing something without the knowledge of other partners. And sometimes we are ending up in confusing member states, which one to follow. So I think policy literacy, strategy literacy, and sharing and focusing on a relative comparative advantage of various actors is the very important issue to focus on. The second issue is around documentation of good practices. I think this is for ILO, for the Economic Commission for Africa, including the sub-regional offices. What better about best practices, or I would say game-changing initiative we have here and there, or practices? You have, for example, use venture funding. My colleague has mentioned what worked in Korea, in Asia, South Asia, East Asia. The Youth Venture Fund has really done wonder. Why not we track this one and learn from it? Preferential procurement, where this policy, for example, earmark reserves 20 to 30% of public contract for youth-led enterprises, women-led enterprises, is another game-changing strategy that we can scale up or upscale. Third is around credit guarantee schemes. This is also, it has done well in India, Bangladesh, Korea also. But I think this is also one area which we can focus on. Tax incentive, this one is also traditional, conventional in public finance, in public policy, which we can also. The gender lens, since I'm coming from the Women, Gender and the Youth Directorate, I have to also underscore the necessity of gender lens. For example, dedicated She Innovates initiative that has been pushed by the UN Women is another important issue to capitalize on. Madam Moderator, time and again, let me conclude it this way. The problem is not with the lack of policies. The problem is not with the lack of game-changing initiatives and the best practices. Unfortunately, we are not tracking them. We are not showcasing them, exhibiting, and transferring those game-changing issues. Another, last but not least, is our tempo is not really aligning with the critical problem that we face. I don't see sense of urgency around dealing with this issue. So boosting the sense of urgency and country acceleration is very important. The game-changing thing happens not at the AU level, not at the UN level, because the employment is down there with the member states. So what is transpiring at the member state is the game changer. So having a country acceleration support for the member state around technique, designing national policies, and scaling up good practices is some of the things that we have to take into account. I thank you very much. Over to you. Hopefully I haven't extended, surpassed the time limit you have given me. Over to you, Vincent.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you, Doctor, very much for this powerful insight. We don't need new game-changing initiatives, policies, and strategies. It's out there, but I think we need to know better, document these best practices, scale them up, and also there's a need for better coordination and less fragmentation among all the actors engaged on this issue of youth unemployment. Over to you, Sisha, to share your thoughts as a young leader, some final thoughts from you.
Thank you so much. I think I would just start by saying the adoption of the AFCFTA protocol on women and youth on its own marked a real affirmative turning point because it finally places women and youth at the heart of Africa's trade and industrialization agenda. But now the real challenge is translating this commitment into practical action. And I see three key areas where innovation can make that happen. Firstly, we need national youth trade and industrialization strategies aligned with the After Youth Protocol, because this would help us map where young people could fit within our value chains and reserve specific support such as, procurement quotas or export promotion incentives for our youth-led enterprises. And secondly, I think it's important for us to rethink how we finance youth innovation, because the traditional finance excludes most young entrepreneurs. Now we need, as aforementioned, blended and de-risked financing models like maybe the Youth Enterprise Export Funds, which can be co-financed by our government, our development financial institutions, and the private sector. And we must make sure that they are gender responsive, ensuring that young women and youth generally, especially in the informal sector and rural areas, they get equal access to both funding and markets. And thirdly, I believe we need policy inclusion. Youth should have a seat within our national implementation structures because we are at an era where each of our countries or the member states of SADC are actually working on implementing their AFCFTA implementation strategies. And we need the youth to help shape trade rules and identify existing bottlenecks. Digital platforms can also connect to youth-led enterprises across borders and make the AFCFTA opportunities visible in real time. Now, to conclude, ultimately, I believe the AFCFTA's youth protocol gives us the framework. But at the end of the day, it's innovation, financing, and inclusion that will turn this particular framework into real jobs, into real businesses, and real transformation for Africa's demographic dividend. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sisha. Very important to hear from the young themselves. And you have made this important point that we must also not neglect the informal sector, young people in the informal sector in rural areas. The point that you've made that we need national youth trade strategies aligned with the AFCFTA protocol on women and youth in trade, and put more emphasis on policy inclusion, including the young in decision-making processes and giving them a say in shaping trade rules and identifying and addressing bottlenecks. Thank you very much for this insight. Mr. Rajagopal from McKinsey, your final thoughts, please. Thank you. Okay, I do not see Mr. Rajagopal online. Maybe we go to the next panelist, Professor Dr. Abdullahi from UNESCO. Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. I just have three quick, concrete, let's say, best practice to share. The first one is that UNESCO right now is implementing, because we need to shift from the policy and strategy to the concrete solution. So we are implementing with the support of the government of South Korea a flagship project that we call Better Education for Africa. The project aims to give young people in Africa a better chance of accessing decent employment or generating self-employment through improvement of TVET system. The project has started in Southern region in 2011. So Botswana, DRC, Malawi, Namibia, Zambia, and now we are at the stage of West Africa, okay? Nigeria, for instance, we are also working in Cote d'Ivoire. We have this kind of successful project to share because, as he said, we need to shift from the policy to the concrete solution. The second one is the Chinese joint project with UNESCO that we call Higher Technical Education in Africa for a technical and innovative workforce, because the project aims to enhance the capacity of higher education institutions to respond to the skill need for national development by facilitating collaboration between higher education institutions and industry. And talking about the industry, I will just highlight that we need to reinforce the collaboration between educational institutions and industry world through public-private partnership, industry advisory board, and of course, work-based. We also need to encourage industry, private sector to involve in curriculum design and expanding practical training facilities. So we need to be more concrete. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Abdullahi. The important point of involving the private sector in curriculum design, I think this is something to really think about. Over to you, Verena, for your thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you. I hope you can.
Yes,
you can hear me, right? Okay. Yeah, I mean, we've been saying so many things already. I mean, I won't be long on that. Just in terms of job market policies, it's true that there have been many policies and not that effective. Even in Mauritius, when we talk about employment programs, etc., it has not been effective and it has not really worked. So while we mentioned earlier having private sector involvement in education, having private sector involvement in all these employment programs is also important, because with private sector, then the young people can have a notion and can integrate the world market better, the industry better, and know the needs of the industry. So private sector involvement is key, not only for the education sector, but also when devising employment programs and policies. The other thing that I wanted to add on is in terms of each country having its own local policies and a series of policies, employment policies, it's good also to adopt a regional perspective, especially when we talk about industry, education networks, how to come with best practices and learn from what other countries are doing, and to come with joint regional initiatives, sharing best practices about training, employment, having this South-South cooperation, I think, which can promote exchange programs, etc., will help in designing better policies for the region and trying to see how to reduce not only youth unemployment, but female unemployment, which is also a problem in the region. We've mentioned informal unemployment and also the informal sector. This is not really an issue in Mauritius. In fact, in Mauritius, actually, we are having youth unemployment at the same time, but also scarcity of workers in many sectors of the economy. And for Mauritius, we are opening the doors to foreign workers increasingly because we lack workers in specific sectors of the economy. So I would end by saying a regional perspective would be important, and having private sector involvement is also important in designing employment policies. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Verena. You summarize it well, engaging private sector in employment programs and adopting a regional perspective. Dr. Hodangingba, your final thoughts. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much. When you ask an economist to give you some few ideas, what you get is a cocktail of solutions. And so you're asking me a dangerous question to bring some solutions to the table. What I'd rather want to do is I talked about the South Korean experience and what South Korea did in a similar situation. Maybe I bring you another case, because you see, the countries are all different, and you don't need a one-size-fits-all solution. And a number of those solutions have been discussed here, and there are a lot of experts here who have done justice to that. But let me just talk about the country Ireland. After the 2008 financial crisis, Ireland's unemployment rate exceeded 35% for youth especially. Within a decade, they managed to bring it to around 10%. Now, this turnaround came not from austerity, but from skills, innovation, and public sector coordination. And so how did Ireland really do it? The first was that they had a program called Youth Guarantee. That is a local job placement program. So this Youth Guarantee ensured that every young person received a job, apprenticeship, or training within 4 months of unemployment registration. Within 4 months of unemployment registration. So it's a youth guarantee. This is practical, right? And this can also be replicated. So Southern Africa can adopt this by linking labor offices, trade unions, TVET colleges to create these local job placement systems for graduates, for artisans, especially in construction, manufacturing, and public services. The second thing Ireland did was what they called a cluster-based industrialization. So Ireland didn't just promote exports, it built clusters. When you go to the marketplace, you ever ask yourself, why are all the tomato sellers in one place? Why are all the people selling oranges in one place? That is what we call a cluster. So for Ireland, they use ICT, pharmaceuticals, food processing, right? They connected them to the universities and small firms. We can do something similar. We can connect and establish industrial clusters around mining value chains, right? That we have so much in Southern Africa, for small, medium-sized enterprises, etc. So this is possible, a cluster-based industrialization to boost value creation in that part of the world. And then Ireland again used education industry alignment. It was very, very strategic, where universities redesigned curricula with employers. Note, with employers, particularly in STEM and manufacturing, right? So that is also something we can do. Already our governments are doing a lot, like a lot of the examples and solutions that we are hearing. But what is that key turnaround strategy that on a mass scale, would help? And lastly, for Ireland, there was a tax policy to reward employment, not extraction. So Ireland tax incentives were tied to firms that created jobs and built local capacity. And so our countries can shift tax incentives away from raw exports towards firms that process materials, that hire locally, that respect labor standards. Let's put export tariffs on raw, minerals that leave the continent. So this is what Ireland did. South Korea also did, similar with skills, etc. And so the solutions are there, but are we ready to implement? That is the real kicker. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Dr. Anyingba, for this very exciting intervention, talking about the case of Ireland, which proves that it can be done. And as a moderator, I would just like to add this point that youth unemployment is not only an African phenomenon, it is a global phenomenon. And no later than last week in the Financial Times, there was an article about youth unemployment in the UK, which is high and rising. And I was like, it is a global concern. And of course, our region has one of the highest rates. But thank you very much for sharing the case of Ireland, which shows that the problem can be addressed. And this important point about having local job placement programs for the young, and also shifting tax incentives to give incentives to employ the young. Okay, panelists, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. We still have many participants online, and we would like to open the floor for a 15-minute discussion or a 10-minute discussion. And I will ask my colleague, Ronald, to help me here to allow people to intervene from the floor. So, ladies and gentlemen, the floor is open for questions. If you would like to intervene, please kindly raise your hand and we will let you speak. And I see a hand being raised, Ronald, from Lesan Yeho and Kopane. Please allow Lesan Yeho to speak from the floor. Over to you. Over to you, Lesan Yeho. Thank you.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
All right, thank you. I think the issues have been listed so many times, but I have one here which I think is not listed because I believe one of the issues that is affecting the youth unemployment rate now in Africa is the research problem, because I think there's a huge problem in terms of how we package our research, because most of the research that is being done in Africa is dominated maybe by the Western in terms of what they wanted. Because like now I would take, for instance, in Lesotho, I think if our research will be focused on our problem as a country, will be like having unemployment rate being reduced. For instance, we can talk about industrializing Lesotho. When you look at Lesotho in the global scale, it performs well in terms of the world where industry is concerned. If we can tailor our research basically in terms of how we leverage or try to lower unemployment rate using the existing global scale like the wool and wine industry. For instance, like in Lesotho, you realize that water is one of the abundant resources. So we need to research tailored into trying to advance or industrializing water. Those are kind of issues that I have seen, because most of people will be going for masters just maybe for being promoted in their work, not basically to solve the problem that exists in the ground. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I suggest we take a first round of questions, and then we give panelists a chance to comment. So your question is about you think that the literature and the research is dominated by the West and that we need more perhaps homegrown local research into this area. We have Bame Boyd-Shotko who would like to speak. Ronald, if you could please, okay, over to you, Bame. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I guess I did ask the question on the chat here, but I just repeat it. I'd like to ask Dr. Abdullahi, in particular, given the velocity at which global demand changes, how would you advise the frequency at which education curriculum is revised to ensure that education does meet the needs of the industry, but also ensure that the revised curriculum, does not cannibalize the already existent operational skill set in play? And again, my other question go to Dr. Hod as well. You've given really insightful examples in terms of South Korea and Ireland, but in terms of the economic conditions that we are kind of currently facing as a continent, do you think those strategies still stand as they are? I know you did mention that as an economist, coming up with a solution will be, a concoction of ideas coming into play. But I think just to try to maybe just create that particular conversation there to say, perhaps let's try to look at the economic conditions that we are currently facing as a continent. And do we still think that those particular strategies are still prudent to what we're currently facing as a continent? Thank you.
Thank you. I believe your question was directed to Hod and also to Mr. Abdullahi at UNESCO. We will take two more questions, and then we will let the panelists respond, and we will need to perhaps wrap it up. We have from the floor Shimbali Shanika. Over to you, Shimbali. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much for the chance. Yeah, my question is, since we are even talking about SADC, do you think we'll be able to meaningfully solve the issue of unemployment in the long term by means of us being not united? Because what is creating employment on the other side of the world, it's the resources and processing of the resources. But where are the resources coming from? They are coming from Africa. But the only way we are going to create jobs is by processing those resources, and that is industrialism. But if you have every country on its own and leaving the resources to go out as much as they want to their own benefits, I don't think that's going to solve. Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear now?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, yeah. I was saying, will we solve unemployment in the long term if we are not united? Let's say just SADC
you're breaking
itself.
a bit, Shimbali. Yeah.
Okay, will we solve
Can you please
unemployment?
repeat your question? Thank you.
Okay, can you hear now?
Yes.
Okay, the question is, looking at SADC just in a small space, do you think we will be able to resolve unemployment if we are not united, looking at the aspect of resources which are leaving the continent? Because the processing of the resources is what causes employment on the other side of the world. But when we have a divided SADC, for example, where individuals manage their resources and they don't keep them inside Africa to process and create employment, it becomes difficult. Will we be able to resolve unemployment if we don't unite as Africans, or even just SADC, so we can take control of our resources and we can create employment through processing it?
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, thank you very much, Shimbali. We will take a last question, and then we will let the panelists respond, and then we will move to concluding remarks. We have Miss Eva Kebadile. Over to you, Eva.
Greetings. I've put two questions from our representatives here. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
We have put two questions in the question
Go ahead,
and answer
Eva.
section. Okay. We have two questions from our youth organization representatives here. The first one is from Olerato Matodi, representing Volunteer Hub in Botswana. Her question is, youth are consulted but excluded from implementation. When will we see youth with voting power on industrialization and trade decision structure? And how can we track progress to hold someone accountable? That is the first question. The second one, from Samuel Hussein, representing Inspired Horizons Association in Botswana. His question is, what can governments and private sector do to make AFCFTA implementation more youth inclusive and sustainable? And also, which sectors have shown more promise for youth-driven value addition for our region and the continent at large? Thank you. Over.
Thank you very much, Eva from Botswana, and thank you for joining us today. The questions are in the chat. I'm going to repeat the questions because you were breaking a bit. So the first question is, youth are consulted but excluded from implementation. When will we see youth with voting power on industrialization and trade decision structures? And how can we track progress to hold someone accountable? So it's about accountability and involving the young. And the second question is, what can governments and private sector do to make AFCFTA implementation more youth inclusive and sustainable? And also, which sectors have shown more promise for youth-driven value addition for our region and the continent at large? Who would like to go first and answer some of these questions? Dr. Hod, perhaps you would like to go first? And then Abdullah from UNESCO, since there was a question on education. And then we will ask Dr. Meshisha and Sisha and Dr. Verena to take the floor. Over to you, Dr. Hod. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, comrades, for these wonderful set of questions and in some cases, ideas. There was a question about how these cases can relate to our conditions. Yes, I mean we have different conditions. We have informality being one big problem. In terms of industrialization, we are not there. So yes, we have different economic conditions, not the same as you would find in other areas. So the answer is yes and no. But you see, although we have informality and other economic transformation parameters which are not similar, the approach is quite the same. What is clear is that you need production, you need economic diversification, you need decent work at the center of industrialization. No country has developed on the basis of consumption and propaganda. It has always been about economic diversification and production. The only question is which one comes first? Is it going to be the TVET, stimulation? Is it going to be the tax breaks? Is it going to be the education that the youth so much need? Is it going to be inclusive growth strategies? Is it going to be tax policy? So in terms of prioritization, we would rank them differently, and the solutions actually have always been the same. You need to industrialize to show that youth can come out of this mess. The question about resources leaving the continent. Yes, that is true. We are exporting our jobs. We are exiling these jobs at our own expense. Africa has been overexploited for many centuries, from the slave trade to colonialism, etc. But we are quite resilient, right? If you look at other countries, like what has Japan got? And what resources have they got? They don't really have natural resources like we have. What do you have in Switzerland? What are the natural resources? What am I driving at? A country can really develop without the natural resources. But we have them in abundance. Perhaps our problem is that we have them too many. We have too many of these resources. So there is that catch to always remain with the resources. So we have to transform these resources into public goods that would benefit the entire economy. And so we have an advantage, right, to diversify, to innovate, to upskill, etc., to take advantage of the resources, and also move away from the resources, in a way that would give us that sustained growth. The youth are not consulted. So another one that came up. I'll ask you, I mean, how many youth ministers do we have in our countries? Right? And this is a pressure point, perhaps, that I don't want to push too much, but I agree with you. The youth must be at the center of this development. They must be co-creators. The youth have some of the best ideas and to support. And in most of the countries that we have seen, the youth have been, the center of that sporadic innovation that creates a lot of jobs, for many people. So the youth must be at the center of these transformative policies. Youth must hold power accountable. So I would say join the unions, be in associations, mobilize, and make sure your voice is heard. After it's a tool, we need to use it, and governments must make sure they are well in tune with the tenets of after. But it is the people who must actually hold power to account. Government should stop talking and put their nose to the grinding wheel. And this is so much very possible. It has been done elsewhere. Malaysia, just 40 years ago was not where it is today, but it has transformed its economy, and so can we. I'll leave it here for my other colleagues to jump in.
Thank you, Hod. We will move to Dr. Abdoulaye, and then we have a PS from Lesotho who would like to offer some final thoughts, and then we will go to concluding remarks. Over to you, Dr. Abdoulaye.
Thank you so much, moderator. I feel that our colleague that raised the point is a very key point for UNESCO, and we are supporting all the member states, as I said, from Eastern Africa to West, Central, and Northern Africa. We have also an example from the South Korea with this better education rise for Africa that we are implementing. Frankly speaking, the best way, to evolve to revise the curriculum is, first of all, to do the assessment of labor market and graduate studies, and so that we have better data on the status of employment in the country or regional level. And secondly, we need to liaise, of course, as I need to repeat again here, with the public and private sector and advisory board, including the teachers, and so on and so forth, because we need also to encourage the revision of the curriculum based on the needs of the labor market. And from there, we can engage the dialogue between the academic staff and the private sector. This is very important. Now, I want to respond to one of our youth questions, how that we can move easily through our continent in this rapidly changing world with a mega trend, particularly climate change, AI, big data, cloud computing. Youth needs skill, upskill, and reskill. But when you skill, upskill, and you reskill, of course, all those skills need to be recognized. And at continental level, UNESCO and African Union has put in place what we call Addis Ababa Convention on the recognition of qualification concerning higher education certificate and so on, including micro-credential. And this convention target also, and this is the inclusion dimension of our work, the migrants and the refugees. And we have the counterpart at the global level that we call the Global Convention of UNESCO on the recognition of qualification within higher education institutions, but also outside the degrees, the certificates obtained, so that when people went to the labor market, what we need is a skill, and the skill need to be recognized. Most of our youth, 20% no, yes, 20% are in precarious situation. So because of lack of education, we cannot talk about industrialization, agribusiness, digital transformation. Without the education, we need to push, we need to improve the quality of education so that our students will shift from education system to TVET and from TVET to higher technical education. And in this regard, with the support of China Fund in Trust, we are implementing a China project and how to respond to the mismatch between the training and the need of the market. This is a successful, let's say, successful and impactful best practice that we can share. We have already implemented this kind of project in Eastern Africa, in Central Western Africa. So I will stop here. Over to you, moderator.
Thank you very much. I think Dr. Mishisha would like to intervene as well. I see your hand is up, sir. So please come in if you would like to speak. Dr. Mishisha from AUC.
Thank you.
African.
I think I insisted to intervene because we have to be very clear from the presentations done so far. As far as my memory goes and the follow-up goes, no panelist has said there is one strategic or magical silver bullet to tackle unemployment. No, the approach doesn't work like that. At a minimum, to fight unemployment-related issue, we require 6 interventions to be more comprehensive based on the root cause we have seen. It requires measures around fiscal policy, particularly investing on infrastructure investment, because it's labor intensive, skill intensive. Monetary policies around youth loans, credit guarantee, which I was mentioning. Industries, special economic zones, like in Ethiopia now, they are making a contribution towards fighting youth unemployment. Education, labor market policy tailored to the youth and the women. The transition, particularly from the informal to the formal, and also to the digital economy. So we have to be cognizant that there is no one solution, and the countries are not also the same. The challenges are not the same, as the panelist from Mauritius has already said. Our size is not, it's different. So adaptation, customization should be the approach. Another issue is the issue of youth participation raised by Methodi, I think from Botswana. I think the participation, we have various paths, various avenues, windows to influence national policies and also continental. For example, for the African Union, we have the ECOSOC, which is based in Zambia, which is meant to have citizens' voice, particularly the youth. So we have to make use of those availed, invited space to influence and also hold government accountable. Another aspect on the accountability, right now I am in Djibouti. We are at the Pan-African Youth Forum meeting here in Djibouti. One of the issues that we have been discussing was employment, and also holding government and other stakeholders accountable for what they have said and what they have pledged and the action they have taken. to this end, the African Union is now developing country scorecards as to how governments are faring in implementing their commitment. So we have diverse mechanism to handle these things. This is what I would like to say. Thank you very much. I don't want to comment on the research. We have also African led African generated research, ample researches on employment, which we have to take note. Thank you very much. Over to you, Ben Suarez.
Thank you, Dr. Mishisha. We will give the floor. The last person to speak will be Mr. Moshi Musa Ase, PS, Permanent Principal Secretary of the Ministry of Employment and Labor from the Kingdom of Lesotho. Over to you, sir. Thank you. Mr. Moshi, can you take the floor? Ronald, could you please upgrade the PS as a panelist? Mr. Moshe, are you online?
Oh, hi.
Hello, over to you. Thank you.
Oh, thanks a lot. I was unmuted. First of all, let me thank all the panelists, UNECA, for such wonderful and fruitful deliberations. And I just wanted to bring, one or two thoughts to say, to really say that this solutions session has been very, very important. But a question that I want to pose forward is, where to from here? Where to from here? How do we move from policy to action, from talk to tangible results on the ground? I feel the deliberations, the country experiences that have been shared can really, really do quite a lot. And through implementation, as long as we implement some of these policies in a way that can curb this problem that we are all facing, which is youth unemployment in Southern Africa. So I hope it wouldn't be asking too much to say, yes, I see the session has been recorded, but could maybe UNECA develop more like a policy document from this to say, Southern Africa, on addressing youth unemployment based on country experiences, and this is what we could do, so that in a way we could domesticate that and implement at regional level, and see also how we work together, as we know that all as members of Southern Africa, regional integration is really a key driver of economic development that can lead to sustainable development and jobs for our young people. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, PS. At our end, we have registered the request coming from the Kingdom of Lesotho for UNECA to produce a policy document.
You are muted, Aruna. You are muted.
No, I'm not muted. Hello. So at our end, I was saying we have registered the request from the Kingdom of Lesotho to produce a policy for UNECA to produce a policy document looking at youth unemployment in Southern Africa, documenting country experiences and best practices. So we have registered this request, Principal Secretary, and we will be in touch with you on the way forward. So before I would like to thank all the panelists, and we now move to concluding remarks by Mrs. Zodwa Mambuza, Chief of the Sub-Regional Initiative Section at UNECA SRO-SA. Over to you, Zodwa. Thank you.
Good afternoon, colleagues. First of all, I would like to thank the Honorable Minister for Labor and Employment in Lesotho for his remarks, which were very instrumental in setting the tone for this discussion, this solution session. I would also like to thank Dr. Abdullahi Salifu from UNESCO, Mr. Mashasha Shiwarig, Miss Mr. Mashasha from the AUC, Youth and Women Directorate, and our economist from I took a lot of takeaways from the person who represents workers. Also, I would like to thank the colleague from McKinsey and Company, and then the young colleague from from Botswana who represented the interests of young people, and Mrs. Verena from the University of Mauritius. I would also like to thank the SADC Youth Forum for partnering with us in this session. So some key takeaways, which I think we all need to think about and act on them. I think the first one that came from the minister was that youth unemployment is costly as it perpetuates brain drain and illegal migration. Also, we've learned that we can't keep analyzing misery. There's been a lot said about youth unemployment, so many recommendations. All we need to do is to act on those and implement them. The other takeaway is that most governments have mastered the art of managing unemployment instead of addressing it. We can't keep doing that. The need to harness our youth dividend to work our natural resources that we have. We've also learned how countries like Japan, without any natural resources, have been able to grow. So the PS right now has asked a very critical question: where to from now? From the ECA side, I would say this discussion will continue under another forum, which has been established by ECA, called the Africa Development Impact Forum, where we will continue sharing the recommendations from this forum, because even under ADIF, we will be tackling youth unemployment. So we are going to come up with a policy document as recommended as ECA, which we will then share with our members in the region. But again, to emphasize that as ECA SRO, our main mandate is inclusive industrialization, which basically means in our industrialization efforts, we are going to include more young people, youth-led enterprises, but also ensuring that our industrialization or the industry that we focus on are able to create employment that will absorb the young people. The issue of addressing skills mismatch is very important, as we are seeing a lot of these new industries coming up, emerging industries. And I like what some of the panelists said in terms of skilling, reskilling, upskilling, because with all these new industries coming up, you can't really say you have enough skills, but have the capacity to reskill, have the capacity to upskill young people so that they take advantage of emerging industries. With those few remarks, on behalf of the director, I would like to thank everyone and hand over to you, Ms. Balaki.
Thank you, Ms. Mabuza. It's time for us to wrap it up. So thank you very much to all our panelists, to all the participants who have attended from the different parts of Southern Africa. It was a vibrant discussion. The recording will be made available on ECA's YouTube channel. It is time to say thank you to all of you. And we have taken note that there are many opportunities to address youth unemployment in Southern Africa. There's no need to reinvent the wheel, but there must be a greater emphasis on implementation and also stronger partnerships. So on behalf of the team here at SROSA, Thank you very much for having attended, and please stay tuned to more from us on the theme of youth unemployment in Southern Africa. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day. Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you very much. Well done. You have moderated it effectively.
Thank you.
I think
Thank
that
you.
was productive. Thank you.
Thank you. Great session. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sisha. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.